Proverbs 25:8 says, "Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame." I remember seeing this play out in the neighborhood I grew up in. There would be a ruckus, and a parent would come out and get involved in this childish scuffle of some sort, and then things would escalate with the different parents getting involved. And these parents would have been better off just watching from the window or the front porch, making sure no one gets seriously injured, and just letting things progress naturally, than to have hastily jumped into the fray as they did. And on a number of occasions, the hasty parent would later end up apologizing after making themselves look silly and foolish. I remember the experience of seeing adults acting as childish and crazy as they did, and then being ashamed of themselves. As a kid, that was something for me to behold, because I didn't see that kind of behavior out of my parents. They were a good example to us kids. They didn't hastily strive with neighbors. We lived in the same neighborhood for my entire childhood, and I can count on one hand how many times my parents ever got involved in any kind of neighborhood skirmishes. And those were actually pretty funny incidents, but I won't get into that here. But I followed my parents' example as an adult. I've lived in several different neighborhoods over the last 40 years, and I've just never gotten involved in any of the drama in the hood. But I've seen others do so, and they almost always regret doing it. I won't even get into the internet videos of neighbors butting into things that don't directly affect them in the first place, but just happen to be happening in their neighborhood. And the next thing you know, they end up getting into an altercation, and in some cases end up being beaten badly, and in a couple of those videos, somebody gets shot. I did have one neighbor one time who thought he had to get involved in every little disagreement and scuffle that ever came up in our neighborhood. It caused him a lot of unnecessary stress and grief. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a time to intervene, especially if someone's getting hurt or something. But when two or more people are just angry and going at each other for no reason, I believe we should just stay out of it. I asked him one time after a particular event, it was a very violent situation that landed one person under arrest and another hospitalized with injuries. And this guy, he was bruised up pretty good as a result. And I said, "What motivates you to get involved in these things?" And he quoted Matthew 5:9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And I said, well, that's true. But the Bible also says in Proverbs 26:17, "He that passeth by and meddleth with strife belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears." And he stood there just in silence for like a solid 5 seconds. And then he looked at me and said, "I wish I'd known that verse before getting involved in this situation." And then we just both looked at each other and started laughing. It was so obvious. And you know what? I think he took that proverb to heart. And if I had known at the time, I would have quoted this proverb too that we're reading now, but I wasn't actually as familiar with this one, because he felt ashamed for getting involved in this situation that didn't really involve him. It wasn't necessary for him to be involved. And he'd actually taken the wrong side and sided with the wrong neighbor, which then caused the other neighbors to shame him for his actions. So it was just a mess. And again, it's a past memory, but it's an example of the wisdom of our proverb. "Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame." Get involved only when necessary, and make every effort to know what the strife is about before choosing sides. This is just good practical advice, as we also see in James chapter 2 verse 8, which says, "If ye fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, ye do well." So love your neighbor, but go not forth hastily to strive.